Donald Trump has signaled that the U.S. is likely to scale up military action against Venezuela targeting alleged drug smuggling. A U.S. task force in the Caribbean is expanding rapidly and has carried out 20 strikes on suspected drug trafficking boats in the region. Donald Trump has threatened to expand these attacks onto Venezuelan soil, accusing President Nicolas Maduro of running a drug cartel. On board Air Force One, reporters pressed Trump on his plans.
I sort of have made up my mind, yeah. I mean, I can't tell you what it would be, but I sort of made up my mind.
What do you say to some of your supporters who might not be excited about another foreign campaign?
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, I can't tell you what it is, but we made a lot of progress with Venezuela in terms of stopping drugs from pouring in.
And we can bring in John Feeley, former U.S. ambassador to Panama and Marine helicopter pilot. He joins us from New York. Ambassador Feeley, I'm going to ask you to get inside the president's head. What do you think Trump has in mind?
Well, first, I'd like to ask you for a hazmat suit before I go in there. Look, we're in the realm of speculation, so let me underscore that. I think that this president has been pressured into these actions, not wholly unwillingly, but I think that at this point, after 8 weeks of a demonstration of American military power, he has been convinced that he has to do something. The word he used with regard to Panama was something powerful when he was talking about taking back the canal. Now, the issue here, Michael, is that powerful is in the eye of the beholder. Is powerful killing Nicolas Maduro with a precision tomahawk strike? Is powerful perhaps sending several strikes into alleged narco-trafficking centers, trying to provoke regime collapse as opposed to a regime change or a regime change via invasion of boots on the ground? All of these are options. And as we know, the president has been meeting with his closest security advisors over the last week. And I think even he realizes that the initial bluff didn't work. So now the problem with the bluff is that it has to be backed up with a credible use of force. What that force is, I don't think will be an invasion.
I appreciate that you bring up the fact that this is speculative, and I'm going to reiterate that. We are speculating, and much of the world is, at this hour. So far, the U.S. military has conducted operations against suspected drug vessels in the region. Could they escalate their operations there? If so, what's likely to be the next powerful action?
Sure, they could absolutely escalate from a technical military perspective, and I speak having flown off of the Iwo Jima amphibious assault ship many, many years ago. There are lots of things that the U.S. military could do. For example, that are short, I should say, of a boots-on-the-ground invasion. They could use that standoff Tomahawk missile capability to hit places that they allege, and that very well may be centers of narcotics trafficking activity. They could try to take out the air defense systems, which I think they could probably do relatively easily. They could conduct serious flyovers with the F-35s that are stationed in Ceiba, in Puerto Rico. There's any number of what the U.S. Department of Defense calls kinetic actions that they could take. What none of these military actions, which are relatively straightforward, what none of them can predict, and where all of us who are looking at this situation with great concern wonder is, okay, and what happens the day after?
The big step, of course, no pun intended, is, of course, boots on the ground, which you just referred to. What are the implications of that, and what are the risks of doing so?
The implications are disastrous for Donald Trump in terms of domestic politics in the United States. Look, Trump and the Republicans just got their sort of electoral ticket handed right back to them in two key states, in the city of New York and on a very important proposal to redistrict in California. All of that spelt bad news. Donald Trump is having a really bad day with regard to the Epstein files. The politics in the United States right now is not favorable to Donald Trump. He just rescinded last night a whole host of the tariffs he had put on. So he's clearly on his heels on the defensive. That would argue for many people to conclude, well, he's got to do something big and he's got to do something aggressive and he's got to show that he's top dog in Venezuela. Well, first of all, top dog in Venezuela doesn't really matter to the unemployed gig worker in Idaho. So he's got to think long and hard about putting American blood and treasure to risk on the shores of Venezuela. The other thing he has to do, and we would know this because we would see if the 82nd Airborne or the 101st Airborne are mobilized. Those Marines, Michael, they can take about a kilometer and a half maybe of Venezuelan territory. They're only 2,200. Venezuela is a country of 28 million people. This is not right now a force in the Caribbean that is ready for an invasion. There would need to be a lot more boots prepared a lot more visibly before he moves forward. I think what you're going to see are some separate missile strikes.
You just painted a very realistic, some would argue a very sober picture there on the presidential landscape. It's part of the reason why the idea of military action inside Latin America, in this particular Latin American country, I should mention, is unpopular among U.S. voters. So why would that be a risk this president might be willing to take?
Look, you just said it. It is unpopular. According to a Reuters Ipsos poll, and most people give it strong credibility, only 21% of the American people, Michael, think that military action to depose Nicolas Maduro is a good idea at this point. What I think this president has to contend with is a very strong lobby of Marco Rubio and other primarily South Florida-based politicians who have long wanted to replace Nicolas Maduro and get him out of there.
Right.
But then he has to balance it against broader American public.
And we'll have to end it there. That is a John Feeley, former U.S. ambassador to Panama and Marine helicopter pilot. Really appreciate your time and perspective, sir.